Hello metalheads, this is Aggro of Dark Industry, and before we dive in today, I want you to know something important. From this video on, you're not just watching, you're joining the metal music debate. So this is a space we are building together, you and I, right here on Dark Industry, a place where metalheads, creators, riff makers, and even philosophers can all collide. And you're invited to speak up. So here's how this works. Your comments can go two ways, okay? So first, react, debate, state your opinion about whatever we are covering today. Or second, ask. It can be anything. Metal guitars, riffs, odd modes, songwriting techniques, screaming, breakdowns, you name it. So whatever burns your skull, drop it, okay? Because your questions shape the next episode of Metal Debates. Unlike the algorithm, I actually read everything. And yes, I answer, of course. This isn't actually a particularly DAW walkthrough space. We are focused on creative core and metal, songwriting, playing, performing, music theory, right? And above all, of course, sound and expression. So, welcome to Metal Debate Episode 1 here on Dark Industry. While you're thinking what you'll throw into fire for the next episode, let's jump into questions that already hit the table in the call-out video. And the first one comes from Plum Bum Bullet. Yeah, NuMetal guitarist. First off, thanks man, of course, for the words of praise in your first part of the comment. It really means a lot, really. Here's what you asked.
I'd like to see a video on new metal subgenre analysis and a video dedicated to newcoming metal guitarists on how to fruitfully and efficiently manage their studying. Maybe some tricks, suggestions, and useful tools to grow in skills and understand the craft, etc. I myself am just 1 year in guitar playing.
Okay, first of all, I could definitely make a separate video on nu metal alone. It's honestly one of my favorite subgenres. But since we're here, let me give you the essence. What made NuMetal's guitar sound unique wasn't riffs and chords. It was the timbre, the tone, the experimentation with effects, and how to deliver not only instrumental effects but also vocal. I'm pretty sure you know the nu metal attitude I'm talking about here, right? So first of all, here's something practical to try. Get your hands on an octaver pedal. That's huge in nu metal. Think of it this way. If you have a physical hardware octaver, that's all you need. Great. But even if you don't, and if you're playing at home or using any DAW, you're good, because there are some free Octavers VST plugins on the market. I checked it for you. Amplitude also has a couple of them if you happen to own it. So just play your riffs, record them on a track, and mess with the Octaver's amplitude. Your goal is to get familiar with that dive bomb effect we use in nu metal, that, you know, bow, wow, 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 wow. You want to experiment with that, twisting your tone into a new metal expression. Just ring out the tone and sink it down and pull it back up. The goal is to get some authentic nu metal techniques of playing and to learn them. And if you want the reference track for this, by the way, listen to Hot Dog by Limp Bizkit. And one more piece of advice: if you have used EQ before, just mess with it. Seriously. Play one riff and then slap on a different EQ settings. I don't know, scoop out the mids, or then just make a lo-fi effect focused on mids instead. It doesn't have to be fancy, just try it. In one of my Instagram reels, I actually demonstrated how Korn did the exactly same thing. Look. You see, Monkey had a focused spectrum of frequencies and then just changed the EQ setting, and the guitar sound simply expanded. This way you're training your ear and shaping your desired tone. And this specific tone shaping creates that nu metal feel you're aiming to achieve. So those are the two powerful first steps to experiment with timbre, and also leave space for our community here to share their thoughts on nu metal guitars and sound in the comments. Now, before we continue, I want you all to stay tuned to Dark Industry and subscribe, because there's a prime new video coming up real soon. It sinks deep into something heavy, not distortion heavy this time, but existentially heavy. It's about how the musicians you grew up idolizing, the ones who lit your fire, might be actually chaining you down. Because every time you land your fingers on your instrument, whatever you're playing, you're not starting from scratch. You're carrying their weight, their sound, their tone, their legacy. That is inevitable influence to all of you willing to write your own music. And I'll be showing you that in full, and also offer you a way out of this pattern, to break through the box. All this in the upcoming piece, so don't miss it. Now we're moving on to the next question, coming from Obanga3777.
I have a live mix question. Is it possible to have a Mesa Boogie Dual Rectifier to cut through the mix live or in a rehearsal?
Alright, I'm not really a live sound expert. I mean, okay, I lied. I just did live mix last month. But still, heavy sound live is a tricky beast, really. It doesn't just depend on your amp, it depends on the tone guy, the setup, his setup, and even the room you're in. So don't get me wrong, a Mesa Boogie Dual Rack is a monster, it's one of my favorite amps. And if you dial it right, it'll absolutely help you cut through. But here's the catch. If your sound guy thinks your tone is eating up the vocal clarity, especially female vocals, say, he might just notch out a chunk of your EQ. That's what I do. So your own settings will just be overridden by a mixing console depending on a number of factors. And sometimes there's nothing you can really do about it, because when we do live sound, we sometimes get into rescue missions. And seriously, that's more of rescuing than beefing it up. Of course, you're not going to crawl behind the console mid-set and just fix it yourself. That's why rehearsal spaces are your playground for this. So you've got a dual rack in the studio, which is great. Here's what I'd suggest. Make sure the vocals are sitting properly in the mix first, okay? They're probably going through a mixer, so check the vocal channel if you can. Vocals usually have everything below 100 Hz completely rolled off. Then look at the mid-range, where their intelligibility peaks are. If you scope that out, tweak your amp's settings. And I suppose you're playing on the third channel, since we're talking metal, right? Probably vintage or modern setting. So go with the presence and treble to find space that doesn't clash with anything. Of course, don't expect to cut through with bass. I mean, forget it. That's where kick and your bass guitars live. So dial the bass just enough to give your guitar that oomph effect, the one that you can hear when you palm mute. That thing. So don't go over 12 o'clock with a bass in rehearsals. You might just be adding mud. Mids are a bit safer, but even they can get crowded fast. You can tolerate 1-2 o'clock with the mids, but keep it under control, because that is the middle of your band's mix, right? So your sweet spot, the highs, of course. If your band doesn't have a keyboard player, that usually means there's much more space for you in the high frequency range of the mix. So it's generally safer to dial it a little bit more of top end than low end on your guitar tone. That extra high can really help your guitar cut through and stay clear than that bass knob. So I'll show you in one of my songs I recorded on a dual rack fully, left and right channels. Listen carefully to the bass and how much information is packed down where your bass knob is, and then listen to the top end, that's where your treble knob is, okay? I'll apply custom EQ settings and just listen to the song so you can hear the difference between information.
In your own thoughts you are the chosen one, laws of the insane. Feel what you feel, beyond the whale feels no more pain. You lead her right. In your own thoughts you are the chosen one.
You see? Down in the bass range, there's just too much going on. That's not your turf. So here's one of your first steps. Chase your guitar's definition somewhere above 1K. That's where clarity lives, and you'll have more room to find the sweet spot. Good luck with your rehearsal, of course, and trust your ears.
Fucking subscribe!
This one comes from the Art Fortress, and it's not the first time my brother is dropping a comment here. And he's asking something interesting about tracking.
What is the proper or even best way to go about recording heavy and loud vocals on a technical level, to achieve that in-your-face quality without peaking the mic? Are there better mics that resist peaking? Is it an input gain meter? Is it about mic technique, or use of compression in the DAW? Or is there something I'm missing entirely in the process? Preparing to cover something from Marilyn Manson. Rock on, Dark Industry.
Bro, you know it's hard to give a complete answer to this in just a few minutes. This stuff is practically a full-on field of study, right? But I'll give you a few key takeaways, okay? And if you follow these, you'll definitely have a solid foundation. So first things first, when I track vocals, whether mine or someone else's, I always keep an eye on the fader. Your input level should sit between -16 to 18 up to -10 dB, that's it. And you want to avoid anything that consistently peaks higher than -6. My recordings never even come close to -6 dB. Why? Because it's way easier to amplify a clean signal later. Your compressor's makeup gain can take care of that. And of course limiters. Than to of course rescue a clipped signal with a declipper. You want to keep it clean and under control. Once your level's good, the next question is, what mic are you using? For all my heavy vocal recordings, I use the classic dynamic mic, this famous SM7B, right? It's a gain-hungry mic, but it handles aggression beautifully. I don't use pop filter because it already has this built-in spongy front grille, right? But if I record on a condenser mic I'm using right now, it's my overhead that I'm speaking into. You hear that? It's way more sensitive, it naturally picks up more details from the environment than I usually reach for it when I'm recording some weird, hoarse, whispered stuff in a lower register. The bottom line is learn your mic, play with the distance, angle, volume, everything. You have to know the soul of your mics and the equipment you're operating with. And something that most beginners miss, if you slap a limiter or other similar plugins before recording, you'll actually get a different result than recording a dry and adding it later. Personally, I always recommend tracking vocals dry. No limiters, no compressors. Keep the signal clean and give yourself full control in post. Now, let me show you something, okay? Here's a song that two of my students made in a home recording session. And by the way, one of them did the entire mix. He's a teenager, man. But by that point of recording, both of them already had 6 years of solid music education, and I taught them both theoretical and practical skills. So yeah, hire me as your personal tutor for the next 6 years and you'll nail the soul of heavy music. But since you've got a Manson cover to record tomorrow, let me leave you with this. For clean and aggressive vocals at home, start by recording at safe levels. Track dry if you can. And if you're a beginner, use a dynamic mic whenever possible. Okay? It'll give you more forgiveness than condensers. Dynamic mics don't care about your crappy bedroom treatment, and they are fair partners in the process if you ask me. Also, listen to the dry take, right, that you have recorded. If you don't like what you hear, don't convince yourself you'll fix it later. Record again. The rule is simple. So if the source sucks, the final product won't save it. Okay, you can't make something awesome from a take that you already dislike. So trust your ears and do a proper quality check. Have fun, bro. And there's my friend Legend Maker 694, who never misses a chance to comment on my content. Right. Thanks again for being here. As always, man, seriously, I appreciate your presence all along. Also, my apologies for not answering all of your questions this time, but I picked my favorite one, the first one.
How do you feel about the emotional consistency of a song, an album, a band, or an entire genre?
No, that's a super interesting topic, and thank you for the follow-up context as well. Here's how I see it. The range of emotional expression is actually one of the things that defines metal genre, or any other genre, okay? I know you watched my video on rock versus metal, where I tackle this exact point, like what happened when Deep Purple crossed the line and made a metal riff instead of a hard rock groove. Why did the Beatles suddenly lean into metal expression with Helter Skelter? So we're not talking stylistic moves anymore, but emotional shifts that come with the changing of expressive tools, I can say. Let me give you an example of classical music. Take Romanticism in the 19th century. It spans a certain range of characters, such as subjective joy, lyrical intimacy, majesty and glory, the Tchaikovsky's 1912 overture, a dramatic tension, extreme expressiveness, just listen to the last movement of Chopin's B-flat minor sonata. There's also tragedy, there's fantasy, exotic colors, humor, pastoral calm, folk root psychological complexity like Schubert's Schwanengesang, 12, and a few more, I forgot. And the metal is the same. Its subgenres built a number of emotional characters. These form kind of an expressive territory the genre naturally covers. But one thing metal never delivers is full-on happiness or celebration, right? Not because it's not allowed, but because this character doesn't fit with the genre's expressive DNA. So think about it like this. Every genre has a range of characters it can realistically express. Sure, punk, for instance, doesn't stretch too far, it's intentionally narrow. But when we zoom out across all of metal, we can probably count about 20-something recurring emotional types. And that's the landscape we're navigating. So the stuff like pirate metal, agricultural, Siberian grindcore, or I don't know, vegetarian progressive black metal, they often sound weird because it's pushing beyond the genre's expressive framework, what we might call established characters. Get it? And yes, this thing is actually something that Harmony has long recognized, so the fact you are asking these questions is great. You're asking yourself something you probably couldn't dig out yourself from the knowledge base, but definitely spotted and became aware of it. So I hope my takeaway here was clear. These are called characters, and every genre operates within a certain set of them. Experts in music theory can definitely define these characters through extensive study, and even without that, I mean, you're already naming a few just by feel, and you're right about it. The list still, of course, goes on. In metal, these characters are shaped and refined by its subgenres, often with overlapping features, like both heavy metal and power metal might, say, share an energetic drive or a heroic groove. They speak a similar emotional language even though they sit in a different stylistic corner. That just shows why we need to bring real academic perspective into metal music, and your comment here is definitely being of help. I promise to keep doing exactly that. So thanks again for being here all along, man, and for everyone else too. I promise to keep delivering the deep knowledge we all crave and we all deserve here in metal. And finally, of course, for the close of this first metal debate, drop your thoughts in the comments. Whether it's the topics we touched on today on which you can have your righteous opinions, or for the new episode number 2, I'm all ears. And for the next video, on behalf of myself, LegendMaker694, the greatest supporter of this growing channel, will be selecting the top comments to fuel episode 2 of the Metal Debates. I'll see you very soon in the next videos, metalheads, and in the meantime, stay heavy.